Greetings Exiles and welcome to a brand new build guide. For today we have Tornado Shot, but not just any Tornado Shot build, but instead an in-game viable version of it. This one can do all content including level 8 Awakener without having to invest into multiple mirror tier items. Also, we are only using Tornado Shot, even for bosses. This means that there is no secondary single target setup required, and thus you don't have to gem swap here and then. Sounds pretty neat, right? Well then, let us begin with this build guide. First off, Tornado Shot is inherently one of the best clearing skills in this game. So obviously, the one thing that we should focus on is single target damage. Scaling boss damage is easier with pure physical damage, since bosses have no mitigation against it whatsoever. Also, Pride Aura is one of the most effective 50% aura for scaling its corresponding damage type in this entire game, which is physical damage. And finally, we can utilize Impale for a large damage boost, which can go over 200% in any physical attack build. So with all of that in mind, we begin with the Ascendancy. First of all, we take Gathering Winds. This node provides us with lots of evasion and tailwind buff at 100% increased effect. That's 20% more attack, cast and movement speed, which apply to your base speed and all other bonuses you already have. Next we have Far Shot. This node makes it so that hitting enemies from a distance scales your damage by up to 30% more at around half the screen distance. Thus try to stay away from your enemies to maximize your damage. Next we take Endless Munition for its +1 arrow and 50% increased area of effect. Finally, we have Ricochet. This node greatly increases our clearing speed, and it's not entirely useless against single target, because we could use Awakened Chain in this build and deal 40% more damage from our 4 chain charges. Now, can you make this build with the Raider instead? Definitely, and you will get higher single target damage at the end, but you will have to gem swap from time to time. So yeah, now let's talk about our passive tree. Here is what your average tree should look like. You could try and tweak it and maybe come up with something that utilizes cluster jewels for around 10 to 20% more damage compared to what we have over here. However, I feel like this version is very balanced between offense and defense. Just make sure to take this small mana leech node because it is required to sustain your mana while attacking. Anyway, I designed this build around the idea of wanting to have at least 5000 life on the top of our already high evasion rating. You should be able to dodge most deadly hits with it, and you will have enough hit points to avoid getting one-shotted from normal monsters while mapping. All that without compromising on your damage investment, which mainly comes in the form of projectile damage and crit modifiers. And with that being said, let's start talking about our items. I want you to pay attention now, since I will be starting with one of the most important items in this build, which is obviously your weapon. Now I'm not going to lie and instead tell you that all of the footage showcased in this video is done using 3 different bows. I wanted to experiment with different bases. One of them is focused on crit chance, other is focused on attack speed, and the last one is focused on base damage. I ended up having similar damage output across the board, with differences being related to the physical rolls on each bow. The idea is that any bow can work, so long as it has a decently high physical damage modifiers on it. It would be pointless to showcase an example, since you will be looking for as high physical damage as possible in the end. It will ultimately depend on how much you are willing to spend, and I don't want to set the standards to be too high at the start. Just remember that having attack speed and as many other critical strike modifiers on the weapon suffixes is optional. But from here we move on to our next item, which is our chest. We are using a rare one with Explodey mod and 1.5% bonus to attack base crit chance. From here you just craft life and call it a day. If you are going to manually craft this, then I recommend you to do that on a dexterity base, because it will roll additional evasion rating. Although having high evasion rating on your body armor is not mandatory. Anyway, next on the list we have Helm. We are using Starkonja's head, a very popular option for any bow build. It has life, lots of evasion rating, and attack speed. Also, it is very easy to find one with the Tornado Shot enchant. Mine has 90% increased Tornado Shot critical strike chance, which I only paid 1 exalt for. you can go with +2 secondary projectiles if you are min-maxing this build. So moving on to our quiver, we have E-shaped quiver with +1 arrow and crit multiplier. I multi-modded mine into life, flat physical damage, and called it a day. The +1 arrow from shaped quivers combined with the one we get from the Ascendancy and the 2 we get from Dying Sun Ruby Flask removes the need to run greater multiple projectile support in our main 6-link, thus allowing us to maintain full damage while mapping. Now let's talk about our jewelries, starting with rings. Our first ring is both E-Shaper and Elder influenced steel ring with Assassin's markers on it and critical strike multiplier with crafted life. Now why do you want this ring to be both E-Shaper and Elder influenced? Because our second ring is Mark of the Elder. Mark of the Elder gives you 90% increased attack damage if your second ring is a Shaper item, and it will give you stun immunity against attacks if your other ring is an Elder item, and since our other ring is both, you can get both bonuses from Mark of the Elder. If you don't know how to make a double influenced item, then don't worry, I'm going to have a comprehensive crafting guide in the future. Next we have our amulet. We are using Imprisons, well, the physical version at least, because it allows us to run Vulnerability Curse as an aura for free. On it we allocate Whispers of Doom to be able to affect enemies with both Vulnerability and Assassin's Mark on our ring. Our next item is a belt. On it we have life and as many resistances as humanly possible. Same thing applies to our boots, except that on it we want to have a high movement speed roll in conjunction with life and resistances. Finally, our last item is our gloves. It also has life, resistances, and attack speed. You should try to upgrade into gloves with chance to impale on hit. However, that will be expensive, thus I recommend you to do it only in the late game if you have decided to start min-maxing this build. And with that we are done with our items. Now let's talk about what gems goes inside of them. As a start, you only need a single 6-link in this build. I highly recommend you to get your body armor 6-linked so that you can easily swap between different weapons as you are trying to figure out which one is best for you. That being said, our one and only 6-link contains Tornado Shot, Brutality, Impale Support, Maim, Vicious Projectiles, and finally Energy Shield Leech support. We are going to be at low energy shield all the time, which means that you will always get higher damage multiplier from the support gem because you are always leeching energy shield. Anyway, our next setup is a 4-link aura setup. It starts with Pride, then Dread Banner, then Herald of Purity, and level 3 Enlighten gem. Next we have another Curse aura setup. This one contains Vulnerability, Blasphemy support, increased area of effect, and Blood Rage. Remember that we get to run Vulnerability Curse as an aura for free thanks to our amulet. Now even with increased area of effect support, your curse isn't going to cover the entire screen. So make sure to stand at around half a screen distance away from enemies to ensure that you are getting bonus damage from your Ascendancy and that they are still affected by your curse. Our last gem setup contains Dash, level 1 Precision, and Summon Lightning Golem. Any remaining gem slot is left for whatever you see fit. You can have cast when damage taken setup, or maybe use them to level up Awaken gems. It's up to you. But with that being said, now we got to talk about your jewels. With the tree I provided, you don't have that many jewel sockets, so start by getting ones that complement whatever elemental resistances you are missing. Here is a good example for that. Once you have capped your elemental resistances, you should try and get a jewel like this one. You need life and as many other damage modifiers as possible, preferably including global critical strike multiplier. For Watcher's Eye, you just need +2 impale while affected by Pride. Now what about bandits? You are going to help Alira because we really need her 15% elemental resistances and global critical strike multiplier because we desperately lack crit multi. For Pantheons, you could go with whatever ones you like. Personally, I went with the Soul of Lunaris because I like to have extra movement speed while mapping. Now don't forget to check the description, because there you will find a BOB link which contains all the information about this build, including the ones we have talked about in this video. But with that being said, we are basically done with this build guide. So what do you guys think about it? Make sure to let me know in the comment section, and maybe give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe so you don't miss any future build guides like this one. My name is Phoenix and I will see you all in the next video.